The main goal of the meetup is to share best practices and have a casual conversation. So it's important that the public is willing to participate and share your questions, either in the chat or raise your hand. You can also participate sharing your face on screen. And we had a really great audience yesterday, super invested, and we hope we have the same today. If it's not the same, even better. So my name is Paula Echeverria. I'm a legal and political advocacy specialist at the Spanish Platform for Patient Organizations, and for short we call it POP. Joining me in the session are my colleague Lucia Ortiz, also from POP, and Daniela Viva from BioRN in Germany. They will be supporting me in the session by keeping an eye on timing and coordinating the questions from the audience. So feel free to share anything in the chat, and they'll be available to answer. So as you know, if you can, Lucia, please share the screen. Thank you very much. As you know, PRECISEU connects innovation ecosystems across Europe to efficiently advance towards truly personalized healthcare by transferring practices and solutions from region to region and scaling up deep tech healthcare innovations based on advanced therapy medicinal products and health data across Europe. So in the next slide, Lucia, if you can. Okay, thank you. As you can see, the project brings together stakeholders from many European countries. If you can see, we are 25 partners from 12 regions in different 11 states. And we are mixed with public authorities, private actors, the innovation community, patient organizations. As you can see in the image, in the round circle, in Spain is the Spanish Platform for Patient Organizations. We are an umbrella organization bringing together 47 federations and state-level organizations. This means we are almost 2,000 patient associations and more than 985,000 patients, family members, caretakers. What all of our member organizations have in common is that we advocate for the rights of people living with chronic diseases and chronic conditions in Spain. So in this context of the Best Practice Recognition Initiative, whose first edition took place in September 2025 in Lithuania, it allows us to discover several cutting-edge projects in the field of data use for personalized medicine. The initiative shines a spotlight on pioneers who are translating cutting-edge science into real-world care, especially through the innovative and responsible use of health data. So it celebrates exemplary practices that not only push the boundaries of what's possible, but also aim to make these breakthroughs accessible, equitable, and impactful for all patients. And the Best Practice Recognition Initiative is structured in 4 categories: impact, innovation, excellence, and culture. And it reflects the different ways in which personalized medicine can generate value, from scientific breakthroughs and data governance to meaningful patient engagement and societal impact. Sorry. For these reasons, us, POP, as patients and patient representatives, we're particularly interested in speaking with the champions of this first edition, understanding how they integrated patient involvement and patient experience, the challenges they faced regarding funding and sustainability, as well as regulatory and governance barriers. Today we will be speaking with 2 representatives of the winning project, Svitlana from the OPORA project and Elena from the PragmaTIL project. Welcome both of you. It is Svitlana and Elena. We will start with Svitlana, winner in the innovation category with the OPORA project, a patient-centered data platform for brain health. Thank you very much, Svitlana, for being here and sharing your experience with us and your time. Could you briefly explain your project in about 5 minutes? You can, of course, share your screen if you prefer.
Thank you so much, Paula, for inviting us, and it's indeed a big pleasure to join such a excellent team of innovators and pioneers in this space and all the important topics you outline. I will share my screen now and give a short presentation. I will try to go through main points, but of course, looking forward to the discussion itself, and please do ask any questions as we go along or after. I'm really happy to present you OPORA Health, and I'd like to start with probably stating the obvious, that personalized medicine increasingly depends on trusted, secure personal data and compliant AI. So not just an AI innovation, but something that reinforces the societal values, security, safety, equity, and fairness. And therefore, innovation in health AI, new projects are especially critical and important because they deliver that diversity of solutions and patient inclusion through their data, through the customization of experiences across the borders, to make sure that the solution, the AI, the new technology that we're building are actually covering all the cases and includes everyone. Despite that huge opportunity that the AI technologies and data technologies give us, what we're seeing in reality that most, and I think it's fair to say most innovations, most new projects in health related to AI and data and personalization really fail right now. And the common thread, what we're seeing is it's about data access, making sure to access patients efficiently, effectively, engage them. Regulatory compliance is a big thing. It's not a problem. As we say, it's not a bug. It's a feature because we do need to build safe and secure systems. But in the way how that regulation and compliance is monitored and introduced, it becomes really, really hard for early stage innovations to comply and to go to the next stage. And of course, the huge one, the biggest one, is funding. It's never enough, and it's always a question: how do we take that really complicated, high risk innovation in healthcare to the next level, making sure that we are compliant, making sure that the technology that we implement is tested and reliable and abundant in terms of security measures. And of course, it's really, really hard, especially at early stages. It does require funding. I know that because I have been on all sides of the table as a technology innovator. I've started several companies. Some of them were successful, achieved exits. I'm currently the CEO of OPORA Health and Skin Technology Innovation Labs. I've been in digital technology for over 20 years, and as well on the entrepreneurial side, now a entrepreneur in residence, member of Institute of Artificial Intelligence, and also on my educational background have been focusing on business innovation, as well as currently I'm on the research side. So I've seen the challenges and I worked with them for many, many years myself. And based on that experience, and of course with the help with amazing teams that we've built, we introduced a solution, OPORA Health, which helps early stage innovators in AI and healthcare who are building personalized data-enabled pipelines to have instruments, a toolbox that will help them to get through that funding gap by having the infrastructure that is low cost, efficient, and compliance ready implemented from the day one without a large investment and without a large effort and specialist engagement. And essentially, the infrastructure is a layered system that includes patient-facing instruments such as mobile apps, integration with medical devices, with advanced therapies, endpoints, clinical decision support systems, and have these layers of compliance and evidence for funders or governance built in. And it's not one platform that aggregates data in one place. It's essentially the technology layer. On top, each innovation project is developing its own data lakes, its own customization, personalization across the border, depending on the clinical need, depending on the regional requirements. So it's a flexible way to enable those early stage innovators. That's what we are working on. And based on the infrastructure, we have delivered many projects now that use the shared underlying platform, which is OPORA. OPORA is in Ukrainian, means support or help. So we are providing that reliable underneath infrastructure for innovation. We started and we have been developing our system in many challenging situations, including currently war in Ukraine, of course, creates a huge problem with mental health and related conditions. So one of our projects that sits on top of the shared infrastructure is OPORA Mind, that built for support of PTSD patients in Ukraine. We also have been working with medical device innovators, providing advanced therapies, delivering the required data infrastructure that sits on top and supports the data collection in often challenging situation with people who are struggling with migraines, with mental health and brain-related challenges. And of course, there's a clinician component, their role, who acts as a main interface for us, working with patients, and we helping them to help better a larger number of patients. Co-creation is extremely important. For each new project that we deploy, we provide an extensive customization help. So you can see our team here working directly with nurses, clinicians, research specialists at sites, with patients as well, onboarding, collecting feedback, making sure that each deployment is customized to their experience. Just some of more examples of participatory methods that we're using, from being in a surgical surgery theater to engaging stakeholders. We have been actively developing theoretical foundations and actively publishing as well, developing data-driven ecosystem frameworks for innovation. As I mentioned, we have an amazing team here of core team leads who we have, the engineering team and everyone else who had been working with us and helping us, who is not listed here, but it's very representative as a technology focus for us. A really deep technical expertise combines with clinical understanding and delivery of public health solutions as well. Just some of the partners, clients, and organizations we have been working with. A big part, and increasingly so, we use our experience with early stage innovation to advocate and to demonstrate how those projects could benefit from different approaches, more support in compliance, in funding, more organized, more structured and shared infrastructure. As well, it's ongoing R&D for us in many directions. We have academic and research partnerships with organizations who we implement cutting edge research and then integrating into our technology platform. So I will stop here. If you are an innovation project who would like to discuss more and see how you can deliver your first pilots more efficiently, get access to funding, be more confident in the compliance of the technology that you are implementing, please do scan the code, come talk to us. We also work directly with innovation systems. So if you're building up or you're supporting innovation projects as well, they're very welcome to get in touch. We would love to speak. I'll stop here, but thank you again for this opportunity to present. I look forward to our conversation today.
Thank you very much for keeping it concise. From the patient perspective, I would like to ask you that in which way you try to make patient participation meaningful and not just symbolic, because I saw in the presentation that you had many aspects of patient engagement addressed, and how did you think that from the beginning, or was it something that changed along the project? Did the patient engagement affected the project and having that in mind?
Thank you, Paula, for the question. I think for us, the question is not even if we want to tick boxes of some abstract patient engagement. I think without a very deep focus from the day one on patient needs, we wouldn't be here where we are today. And it's especially evident in the design process. of our platform, because at all stages, literally from the day one, we have been engaging all the stakeholders in the design of the technology itself. Patients, including doctors, who are, as I say, almost a proxy for understanding some of the patient needs better. Policymakers, ethicists, but of course there is nothing can replace engaging patients directly. That's why with every new implementation, similarly, we would try and talk to patients. Can they wear wearables? What about the mobile app screen? Is it usable? What problems we have? And because our approach is kind of has this three 3 points. First, it's about co-creation, co-design, the actual process of designing customization of each implementation. So technologically, this is not something, we thought, okay, it would be nice to have. This is actually ingrained into the methodology from the business perspective that we use. It's co-creation from the day one. It's constant experimentation in a way what works best and what's more efficient. But also it's about data, right? Because more data will include more diverse patient data collection we can offer through wearables, through diaries, through questionnaires, through digital data collection tools. More information we can have about the patient. So it's talking directly and testing physically, but it's also having more higher quality, more diverse data. So by monitoring the diversity of those data sets and making sure we have input from all populations, increases our input through that knowledge in the final AI models and the system itself. So that's kind of another aspect how patients are engaged through their data.
Okay. And did you learn something different from engaging patients that had really complex or chronic or rare conditions? And did any of these made you think, if you were starting the project again, would you do anything differently regarding the patient involvement?
Yes, absolutely. So I wouldn't say we would make things different. I think it's we learned a lot that this diversity and difference of different patients group is very important. So I would say we successfully integrated that discovery process in our operations, in our product development. But to give you an example, working with migraine patients, with chronic, which is chronic condition, debilitating condition for many, because it's very hard to see for many people, obviously, and it's something that could be discarded as pain. It's a minor thing, but in fact, there's a huge number of people in the EU who are affected by that, who miss work, who cannot care for their homes and so on. And it's also very individual experience. So there's so many factors that come for each individual person, so many different experiences, and because it's subjective. And we have to say it mostly affects women, and historically, I think it's of course much better now, but historically there were different perception of women pain in medical systems. So we're kind of dealing with so many complexities here, and because it's directly to technology, because you have a headache, it's very hard to look at the screen. That, for example, complicates data collection. So by incorporating on all those perspectives, of course, we using the shared, the common ground infrastructure, but we customize the user experience, how the app is designed, how we collect that data. Can we triangulate data points from diaries, from wearable, from all the different clinician feedback to build up this personal journey, the understanding, the personal experience of the condition, and of course, therefore, we can provide better treatment for them. So it's absolutely very critical that we keep that diversity in mind. It's also sample of one, yeah, but that's what we're aiming for, because we have all that data, because we can process it efficiently. We're able to customize each treatment individually. Well, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Also wanted to ask you regarding your funding uh, barriers. Did you can you share a little bit more on how the project was funded, whether there were public or private, and whether the patient participation was adequately recognized with the budgeted by the funders? How can you tell a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So far, we mostly funded by public funds, by EU grant, research and development financing, and revenue reinvestment, as well as money that we put in as founders in the operations. Uh, I have to say it's a really big topic, both from our experience as a company, but also with the companies and clients that we're working. Funding is a number one concern, and it's of course very challenging for early stage innovators to consider everything in terms of compliance, in terms of safety, efficiency, processes. Of course, engaging patients is quite a costly area. And unfortunately, from what we've seen, sometimes it's, as you say, it's a box ticking exercise where the requirement for compliance, for processes, for engaging patients, but that would not necessarily be addressed enough in terms of funding, because of course we have to justify every single penny or cent that is invested. Um, and with private, of course, that's the whole translational gap, the death valley, right, between the moment when technology is prototyped to the point when it goes to the market, and it's very, very risky for private investors. So the organizations have to get there with bootstrapping or with government funding up until to the point when they become de-risked enough for private investors. So of course it becomes this imbalance of a lot of requirements, a lot of pressure, but very, very limited resources. And that's what we're working on. We're trying to help and close that gaps by giving more cost efficient, more scalable infrastructure for those organizations, because otherwise it's super challenging to make sure you create an innovation that's safe, efficient, and done properly, and engages all the stakeholders, and have patients funded to test the product. So it's a really, really big question. I agree.
And for example, regarding the regulation or the law or the governance, did you face any problems with that? Or maybe the data consent, data protection, those requirements, did it affect anything of the project or of the patients engaging in the project or participating?
Well, of course, regulation is a huge thing on the agenda of any innovation organization, any project. It's very scary, I have to say, from our direct experience working with those innovators. It's a big, scary thing that requires a lot of money, requires a lot of effort, and maybe we will do it when we have budgets and when we're ready for that. But I think that it's my personal opinion, but the reality is the regulation there to make our lives easier, in fact, make our innovation safer, make sure that what we're building as a society is more fair and applicable to everyone. So it's not something that we as innovators have to be scared of, but at the same time, because it's quite difficult and fragmented, especially so we're looking from the UK market perspective and the EU market, which of course as well have all the local differences, have the organization level policies, country level policy, the EU AI Act, AI as a medical device. So we have all those kind of regulations. It's really hard to navigate. And again, we believe that answer to that is not to say, oh, regulations are bad, or they're difficult, or they're creating problems for us. No, we just need to have tools that simplify the compliance process and that transform that headache that we have now with all the different requirements and documents and never-ending reports that we have to write into something that will free us our time as innovators to focus on patients, focus on our technologies, focus on innovation, and automate or simplify that compliance process for early stage companies.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I think that's interesting, and especially with an AI project, of course, regulations can be more challenging. I can see already that there are a few questions in the chat. There are two of them that are related to your relation with the PRECISEU ecosystem. They are asking whether is OPORA Health a participant to the PRECISEU call, and also if you could explain a little bit about your relation with PRECISEU.
So we got in contact with PRECISEU. I think about a year ago. We followed the project. We were quite excited that this initiative is actually being implemented. We are not one of the project members. But the project itself has been an immense help for us because we applied for the Best Practices Awards and have been very, very happy to be awarded the award in the innovation category, which of course is by itself nice and flattering, but more importantly, it created this platform and allowed us to be part of community, this growing community who talks about challenges like we're discussing today, who is aiming at changing the situation across Europe. So we're very honored and proud to be part of this community.
Okay, there's another question in the chat. It says, you say that OPORA helps to build, launch, fund, and scale tools. And their question is, how do you support with the funding aspect?
So yeah, that's a really good question, and thank you for that. When we talk about getting access to public but also private funds, what funders are looking for is the evidence of scalability, of reliability, efficiency of the technology, and also importantly of compliance. If we're talking about EU applications for grant funding, the big thing is to make sure that we evidence that everything we do right now and everything that we plan to do during the duration of the project is compliant, the risks efficient, and so on and so forth. And of course, AI in healthcare is, in most cases, is high risk, meaning we have to provide that infrastructural technology evidence from the day one. So because we provide the technology that is compliance ready and built around EU AI regulations, when we deploy the technology, working with a partner, working with a client, they receive that scalable, compliance-ready infrastructure from the day one without the investment that usually would be required when you have to build everything from scratch and you have to implement all those elements. So the platform itself allows to collect data, allows to operationalize that AI pipelines, generating evidence for ethical boards, for governance representatives, for funders, for EU, that could be easily used and could be easily integrated into reporting, into application forms. So we really simplify that burden of evidence, of technology documentation, of ticking all the boxes in terms of security and safety, because it all comes out of box. And essentially, once you implement it as AI innovator, it scales up. You build the foundation for a long time. So in this way, we're making it easier to apply, to be selected, and then to implement a funded project in the EU and in the UK.
Okay.
But thank you for the question. Yeah, it's very relevant.
There's another question in the chat, although I think this is not for you directly. There's an open question. Dennis is asking, and I think you asked this also yesterday, is anyone from PRECISEU Partner Cluster Health Emilia Romagna on the Zoom call? if you are talk to Dennis, although Dennis, remember, this is not like a meeting from PRECISEU. This is precisely for the winners of the PRECISEU Best Practice Recognition, so we're more focused on that. But if anyone from Emilia Romagna is in the call, please talk to Dennis on the chat. But remember, the focus is different. Thank you very much for your question. I would also like to ask a last question for you, and it is considering everything we have already discussed. What would you need in order to further scale or advance or elevate your project, Svitlana?
So what, again, very good question. And for us, as well as what we believe is needed for health AI innovation ecosystem, is to come together and coordinate efforts and help those innovators with practical action, practical tools. And that's what we are aiming to deliver. We're working now directly, and we're establishing more deeper connections with innovation hubs and ecosystems in healthcare across Europe, including the UK, so we can create that shared infrastructure. So in Wild World, we're very interested in getting in touch with organizations who care about advancing health AI innovation and partnering with them. As well, of course, we're always very excited to work with health innovators, no matter what stage, especially earlier stages, share our expertise, share our experience in fundraising, in compliance, in reporting, in technology deployment, working with patients. So again, very open to speak to anyone who think that our expertise could help, or just to share an advice. So yeah, it's working all together to deliver that better, fairer AI innovation, and we look forward to continuing that. Thank you so much, PRECISEU, for making it happen and for supporting that.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you very much, Svitlana, for your time and for sharing. If anyone in the audience has more questions for Svitlana, we'll keep them for the last part of the meeting. We will be all able to share more. But thank you. Right now, we will move on to Elena. Elena is one of the winners of the Excellence category with the project PragmaTIL, a pragmatic approach to adoptive cell therapy using tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes. So the PragmaTIL trial aims to optimize TIL-ACT for cancer and enhance its clinical use in academic hospital. Thank you very much, Elena, for being here and for sharing your experience with us. Could you also explain a little bit about your project in around 5 minutes?
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the recognition. First of all, it's a pleasure to talk about the project. I have prepared some slides, so let me share my presentation. So I will be speaking about the PragmaTIL study. That is a project that has been granted funding through the European Union's Horizon Europe. So these are my conflict of interest. Well, I'll say that I am a phase 1 oncologist that works in Vall Hospital. So I do work with a lot of pharma companies to do phase 1 clinical trials, but this is an academic project that I will be discussing today. So I did want to give a bit of context to TIL therapy and to cell therapy in general, just to say that this is probably one of the next frontiers that we will be using in the treatment of solid cancers. As you know, cell therapy is very advanced for the use of in hematology. But for solid tumors, it's been a bit delayed. There are different types of cell therapy. Cell therapy is a form of living therapy. We're going to be taking the lymphocytes, so the white cells of the patient, and we're going to be doing some modifications and then giving it back to the patient so that lymphocyte can attack the tumor. Depending on where we take the lymphocytes, so the blood or the tumor, and what we do with the lymphocyte, we have different types of cell therapy. So we have TILs, that is what we're going to be talking about today. But also, if we take the lymphocytes or the white cells from the blood, we can do CAR Ts or TCRs. And 2024 was actually an important year for cell therapy because we had 2 approvals, and this really has marked the beginning of a new era for solid tumors. So talking about TILs, here what we do is we get a specimen from the tumor of the patient, and we get the lymphocytes, the white cells that are in the tumor. We expand them outside in the laboratory, and then we will give them back to the patient for these cells to be like an army and attack the tumor. The thing with this treatment is that it cannot be given alone. So the T cells are not given alone. They are given with very high dose chemotherapy to begin with that has some important toxicities. But then we also give very high dose IL-2. The IL-2 is like, let's say, food for these lymphocytes that makes them expand. And we know that without this IL-2, these treatments are really not effective. But IL-2 comes with a lot of toxicities. Patients need to be hospitalized for around 3-4 weeks. And most of the patients, all of the patients, will have grade 3 and 4 toxicities. So this makes that sometimes these treatments need to be given in intensive care units and only in very specialized centers. So what's the evidence that we have on TILs? It's mainly in melanoma so far. There's been studies that have been done worldwide. This is a pharma company that's called Iovance, and they had results in melanoma that had progressed a standard therapy, and they have a phase 2 clinical trial that with some patients having response and long-term response that led to the approval by the FDA of their product. This product is not approved in Europe. What we do have in Europe is a big academic effort that has been led by the NKI and by Harlev, our colleagues that ran a very big phase 3 trial, also in melanoma, comparing TILs versus ipilimumab, which was the standard treatment, and that was a positive trial for TILs. And in these 2 countries, the patients with melanoma can have access to this type of treatment, but otherwise in Europe, there's no access to this. So what's next in the field of TILs? There's a lot of areas that are being investigated right now, but one of them is actually to reduce the toxicity that, as I mentioned, is given by the IL-2. And in the phase 1 units, there are a lot of interleukins that are being explored, and this is one of them, INB-419, that try to maintain the positive effects of the interleukins, so really to stimulate the lymphocytes while avoiding the toxicities that are seen with the regular high-dose IL-2 that makes patients need to be in the hospital, mainly a syndrome that is called cytokine release syndrome that makes the patient have a lot of dyspnea, fever, shivers, and really makes the patient to have a complicated situation. So that's how the PragmaTIL the idea of the PragmaTIL was launched, is could we really do cell therapy in a way that is better tolerable for patients if we substitute the regular IL-2 by one of the analogs of IL-2, in this case 419, and to really be able to compare the quality of life of patients and develop health technology assessment that makes the implementation of these treatments that we know are effective broader throughout Europe. Here you can see the consortium. It's a big consortium with 6 different cancer centers that are administering TILs. But one of the important parts of how this project was envisioned was really to have a big involvement of patients. And the work package 3 is all about including patients as co-researchers. So we did create a patient advisory committee that helped co-create the clinical trial by selecting and collecting some measures and of treatment-related toxicities, quality of life, and they have also developed information and education. And while there's been a lot of processes to try for these patients also to come up with what are the needs, and these are patients that had participated in TIL therapy in also in other sites. So as I mentioned, one of the key essentials is really to have patients as a main stakeholders of this project. And here you can see the teams that are leading this. This is led by the team in Gustave Roussy, and as one of the key things is actually, and one of the challenges is when we got the grant, we started co-creating this, and actually, as you will see, we had to change our primary endpoint of the study. So this talks now about sometimes patients need to be involved actually sooner, no, like even before getting the grant, no, because if not, these things happen. But as I mentioned, the co-creation of the clinical trial, very important, and really the assessment of quality of life, very important. So in the project, we will be doing a clinical trial where we will be randomizing patients to receive the regular TILs versus the TILs with a new IL-2, and we are including so far patients only with melanoma, but the trial can include other treatments such as non-small cell and cervical. I do want to say that in this process of co-creation, we ended up changing our primary endpoint. So now we have a co-primary. The primary objective is really to see if we can decrease the number of relevant adverse events per treatment arm. And this is a predefined relevant adverse events that list that is in the protocol and that us as physicians thought out. And what is, I think, nice of the project is a co-primary endpoint is actually we have found what are the patient-reported outcomes equivalents of these adverse events of interest, and the primary, and we have a co-primary endpoint that we need to decrease both. So not only assessed by the investigator, but also an assessment of the patient. Another particularity of this project is the way we are handling the TIL manufacturing. So TILs, it's a complex thing to actually do, and it's difficult. Most of the evidence is done in only one site and academic centers. Here it's a big consortium, and what we are doing is each site is producing their own TIL. So this has been a very big regulatory milestone because what we have created is some common documents for all, and we have argued that the TILs are similar enough to really be considered together in one clinical trial, even if each site has their own IMPD for production. So this is also a pragmatic way of being able to generate data in a way that advances science for patients. And with this, I finished explaining the project. I do want to acknowledge the whole of the team. It's a big consortium, a really huge team effort from all the sites. And once again, thank you for PRECISEU for the recognition, and also all of you for your attention. Happy to take any questions now.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you very much for giving us that much information in that little time. I would actually want to ask you whether patient input actually influenced from the initial definition of the research question to the actual project of objectives. Like, did it change anything from the beginning to the end?
No, it changed. So what happened is we wrote the grant saying we would involve patients, but when we wrote the grant, we didn't involve patients at that point. That's to be totally honest. So when we got the grant, and so for the grant, we wrote what we believed were going to be the objectives of the clinical trial. What happened when we created the advisory committee of patients is that they advised to changing this objective, so we changed the objective. It created a situation that is worth to mention, because of course we went and we changed the protocol, but we actually didn't write to the European Commission saying we have changed the protocol. We had told them that we were going to be involving patients to see if this happened, but we didn't write them back. So in our first meeting with them, they were a bit like, you should have come back to us saying that you were changing the clinical trial. And we were like, yeah, but this was part of the idea, not to see if patients would want to change the idea. So yes, patients here have actually changed the design and the co-primary endpoint. So it's probably the biggest change you can actually make in a clinical trial, the primary endpoint of the study.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's interesting. Thinking about how maybe regulations or funding projects should be more flexible and more adaptive into thinking how this actually practically apply to the projects. And I think it's interesting. Can you share a little bit about how did you address the issues, for example, of representativeness, of inclusion, or equity involving patients? Did you take that into account?
So we are lucky to have in the consortium the biggest sites that are administering TILs in Europe, and also in Israel. So these sites had a lot of experience and patients that had participated in clinical trials. So when we asked for them to talk with their patients committees, they are more advanced perhaps than what we had in Spain. So this is something that we did. So we reached out to everybody to see who wanted to participate in these patients committees in order to ensure that this was done in an equal way. And we also included patients that would be eligible for the clinical trial at some point but hadn't received TILs. So both patients that had the experience and could talk about their experience of how they had experienced TILs in their journey, but also patients that had the tumor type and could be potentially eligible for this type of treatments in order to have both visions.
I think we have a question in the chat about how much time in advance you need for the identification of financing opportunities of this kind in similar niches. How much time you need to prepare for them with some likelihood of succeeding?
So this is a lot of investment of time. In fact, the reality is that the project is delayed by a year because of all the regulatory things that we have faced, all the regulatory challenges that we have faced. We still think that this is that we're going to be able to commit to the project objectives, but this has taken longer than we expected because of the regulatory complexity of what we believe is it's really a very good idea to generate evidence, but it's something relatively new because it's really the first time this is done for solid tumors in this way. So this had a delay. So things are not easy. And to identify for opportunities is the same. I mean, we have, and I have to be thankful, in Vall, we have a big project office team that is in search of funding opportunities. And we are always discussing the possibility of applying for this. But this requires a lot of effort of a lot of people in order to be writing all these documents and generating all these applications. So it's really a team, a very big team effort. And well, I see Silvia Martin Luesma is also connected. She's our regulatory expert, and she has been part of all of this effort. So I also take the opportunity to thank her.
Well, thank you, Silvia, for that. And also, if you want to participate, sharing a little bit of the regulatory barriers or the different aspects that you faced, you're more than welcome. I see that there's also another question. They're saying, from this impressive example of the importance of patient engagement changing the primary endpoint, do you also have examples of the impact of patient involvement in earlier phases of the project, like, for example, during research?
So this is what we should, I mean, the whole project is the clinical trial. No? So the project has launched directly on this, and right now there's other initiatives that the patients are proposing that we need to see when it's the best moment to amend the protocol and to include. No, so this is something that that is work in progress. But the whole project starting with writing the clinical trial. In this particular project, the reality is we should have involved patients before. But this is where I think it's sometimes it's difficult because of the deadlines, the timings. So this is where I think, Paula, what you mentioned of having flexible regulatory frameworks and funding frameworks for these things when they happen, to know that this can modify protocols and projects, it's important, because sometimes it's difficult because of timings to get all of this process of co-creation actually before submitting the grant.
And same question as that I asked to Svitlana is considering everything and the state of the project now, what would you think you might need in order to advance or scale and elevate the project?
So right now we are thinking what is the best option to combine with these TILs. So we're the idea, and we are in the midst of writing and trying to organize the amendment to see what is the best drug that we should combine with the TILs. So there's evidence that there's a second molecule that perhaps it's better for some scientific reasons that I think I don't have time to explain right now. But right now it's trying to see what's the best option of combination with TILs, and it's trying to optimize this strategy. So right now the trial is open in 3 sites, in Harlev, in NKI, and in Valdebron. We still need to include other sites that have this capacity to generate their TILs in order to boost the recruitment. So I think there's challenges that regulatory-wise can speed up the way that we are generating evidence, and also scientific questions that need to be addressed in order to see what's the best partner for TILs.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, and also thank you very much for both of you. And I think we can now open the discussion for both of the champions. And also for the audience, if you have any other questions for both of them. I did see the registration, and I have one that can actually, a question that works for both of you, is that some of the members of the audience shared that what are the currently highly demanded medical needs in both of your projects? Svitlana, can you please start a little bit about that?
Right. Thank you for the question. So, are we talking across all the clinical areas, or are we talking about technology? And
the question was really open, so I think you can go either way, or maybe both. What you can share, or what you think is most applicable for the public or the general public in this meeting.
Of course. So I'm of course biased because we primarily right now work with brain health in the broader sense, mental health and cognitive aging, similar conditions, and we're seeing huge increase in demand and in general fragmentation of the challenge, and especially that's where personalization actually extremely important. We're coming from Ukraine, which is of course now an example which hard to under stress how large the mental health burden is, and we all know about the difficulties of the war and challenges of course people dying and energy crisis right now. But what is not obvious is the huge mental health load that everyone is experiencing, and it's ranging from people on the front line to the families who have to stay in unlit and cold homes in minus 20 outside because of the energy problems. And it's of course something that people usually don't discuss because much bigger problems out there. But it's also those who left the country, who now across Europe, of course, struggling with all their own set of challenges. It's of course the whole Europe, the whole world that this problem affects, and we're dealing with that firsthand, and we see how big the problem is, but how little it's talked about, and even less is done about it. And of course, it all transforms not just about personal experiences, it's challenges with suicide and pre-suicide levels and drug addictions and many, many other forms, how it affects now and how it will be affecting the health of the country of Europe many, many years ahead. And here where personalization of treatment and making sure there's a broad enough range to address different situations is super important. So that's what we're saying. It's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity to make impact for anyone who works in this space with different interventions, from medical to therapies to really, really broad range. And especially when we take that in the combination of chronic conditions or all the other the situation that people experience, it becomes a complex challenge that we're here all to address. So I would say that, but it's, yeah.
No, I think that was a great answer, and it's super important. Even though there are, of course, emergencies and health aspects that arise, it's important for investigators to keep on with their work and maintain a certain clear focus towards that, because it's still going to be a problem. And thank you for that work and for that perspective, which is obviously not the same for all countries, but it's really, really relevant in this context. Elena, can you share also a little bit about the question, like what are the current highly demand medical needs regarding your project?
So how I think right now there's a lot of questions that need to be still answered on how cell therapy is going to be given. They are very challenging therapies from many aspects that make them different from other therapies that have been used in oncology. One is all the logisticals that need to be done and in place. So this is a live therapy. There's a lot of manufacturing problems on how you scale this process up and you make it sustainable from an economic perspective. So also this is something that is important for how this is going to be implemented in the future. So improve the efficacy from a medical point of view, but also improve the logistics and the manufacturing so this can be scaled up at a reasonable cost that enables the system to pay. From a medical perspective, there are a lot of needs. One is in patients with melanoma, where the evidence is bigger, how the patients are going to have access. And then importantly, when we are expanding this type of therapies to other indications, to have the infrastructures and the hospitals ready for this. So it's going to be education, it's going to be training, it's going to be patient involvement, generating structures, both for manufacturing and for administration. And that's why reducing the toxicity to its maximum while maintaining the efficacy, it's really an important part of how we solve these needs. There are a lot of initiatives that are taken in place. For example, there is initial data that instead of for the CAR Ts, so this is not for TILs, instead of taking the lymphocytes from the blood and manipulating them, there starts to be evidence of what they say CAR T in vivo generation. So this is the administration of the virus that will transduce the lymphocytes in the blood. This would simplify the logistics a lot, but this is very, very early days. So a lot of excitement in the field, but still many things that need to be proven. So each of these things requires attention. The regulatory, the pricing, the scaling up for the manufacturing, and increasing the efficacy in solid tumors.
Okay, thank you. There's actually another question for you, Elena. How long does it take to produce TILs from sample collection till administration? What is the production process bottleneck that needs improvement, in your opinion?
So right now, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to do this. We are trying to shorten. So there's a lot of. So I'm not an expert in producing TILs, but there's a lot of efforts that are being done to try to shortening this manufacturing to less time. It's in the manipulation of these TILs that you make them grow and you expand them, but you need to reach enough numbers to be able to treat the patient, and also to have the TILs that remain young, so not too long, because if not, they also will decrease the efficacy.
I would also like to ask you both.
But sorry, Paula, just to mention that.
Sure.
This also is another thing that requires a big specialty, so producing this TIL. So right now, for example, we are in the building our own GMP facility in Vall, thanks to the help of the Asociación Española contra el Cáncer. This is requiring a whole set of people that has the expertise on how you produce these skills to try to reduce the manufacturing process. So it's another area, of course, that requires optimization and improvements.
The question I wanted to ask you was that if there were certain costs related to patient involvement that were specifically difficult to cover, like capacity building, coordination, or compensation. I think it's a question that both of you can answer. Svitlana, if you want to start.
Yes, sure. So, of course, it's always a high overhead when personal engagement in person, one-by-one engagement is required, especially if we talk about any in-depth co-creation sessions or interviews that that incurs cost. This has to be, and talking from the perspective of health tech innovation, which is often lean and have to work on limited budget. It's something that's usually built in the process and spreads through the duration of early stages of innovation. Of course, the limited budget mean that potentially the scale of that engagement and depth of that engagement is limited. Again, I believe digital technologies come here and help. So, of course, starting with potential online co-creation sessions with tools like prototyping and discussions, but also using access to data, using digital platforms, mobile apps, for example, can significantly reduce the cost of gathering patients' feedback. So, mobile app, for example, not only as a tool for therapy or intervention, but as a way to quickly gather, aggregate data, demonstrate certain elements of user experience. So I think digital technologies are very, very important in that respect. And of course, we have to use them to and augment more direct patient engagement methods in our work.
And Elena, what do you think about this?
Well, I agree with Svitlana. No, there's always some cost involved, and if you have budget, it's easier. I do think perhaps it's also how you change the culture, you know. So I do think it's how you educate also us physicians, investigators, on how you do this. This is a long-term view, you know, on this change of paradigm of patient involvement in clinical trials. So it goes beyond the project, but it's about generating initiatives that put the value of the patient, and that we all learn about how patient involvement happens and how it can really make the projects improve in such a way. And I think also fundings to create these structures of patients that are sometimes, you know, you need a patient involvement and you don't know who to ask, who to approach. I'm talking as a physician right now. So sometimes having structures of patient organizations, associations, where you know there's patients that are willing to participate in this kind of initiatives. This is also something that helps beyond a specific project, no? But having funding to create this kind of structures help, and I think that's important for projects too.
And did you feel the need to justify or defend patient involvement when applying for the funding or something like that?
What do you mean exactly? Sorry.
If the aspect that you planned for patient engagement, they were all fully understood in the funding, were they all, or was it something you had to fight for a little bit?
No. To be honest, no. I mean, the aim of the project was really to improve toxicity and quality of life, so tolerability of treatment. No, and here the patient voice is it's very relevant. So this is a movement that is happening. So I do phase 1, that what we are is evaluating toxicity all the time. So this how you involve the patient voice is something that is really right now very, very, very there. So there was no extra justification that needed to be done, that in the end we are assessing tolerability of treatment, and the patient voice is really relevant here. So
Okay.
no pushback, no.
I can
and Svitlana, yeah, tell me.
Yes, just on that one, absolutely agree with Elena. When we work with projects that are funded by government grants and translational funding, it's usually the case, and absolutely it's something that's goes without saying, and I think potentially easier to justify it than some of the other investment categories. But at the same time, after the project, and if we're talking about something that is ready to be commercialized, the organization is seeking private funding, such as venture capital. That's where this question probably will come up. And in the pitch for private funding, I think it would be wrong to say, okay, we require funds, X amount of number of millions, and a large part of it, a significant part, will be spent on patient engagement. I think that would be something that investors would question. And of course, on that stage, what we need to do is really link patient engagement to improvement in the outcomes of product validation or improvement on clinical trial results, efficiency of delivering the solution, potential scalability, how early engagement is actually an instrument of product development rather than something that's nice to have. So at that stage, there's this kind of justification. Why are we doing that? Is it nice? It's a nice thing to do. Is it ethical? Of course it is. But if someone invests money, we really need to link it back to hard KPIs that we're delivering.
And when it comes to, for example, the challenges that still remain in sustaining patient involvement beyond the lifetime of the project, what do you think about that?
So on my perspective, I think at certain stage, once product is in the market or in active use, of course, the formulation is shifted from engagement in development of solution into actually delivery of the service to the customer, the users, if not the paying customers, but the actual people who benefit from that. And that part of improvement of the quality of the delivery, of efficiency, is really something that becomes that essential part of the commercial model or treatment delivery model. At that stage, I think it's absolutely the language that everyone would understand from the funders' side. But until then, while we're transitioning to that stage where we actually can have operational engagement of the product users or patients, I think we really kind of there's a lot of struggle that we're seeing that innovators have to go through to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. And Elena, what do you think about the challenges that still prevail beyond the lifetime of the project with patient involvement? If you have any insights on that.
So I think one of the things that that will be maintained of the project is how it's this idea of how we are generating evidence, and that this is important for patients, and how we are generating evidence with this type of treatment in this decentralized fashion. So beyond the result of the clinical trial, the milestone of being able to create a protocol that involves different European centers, each site doing their own TIL and trying to generate evidence, that's already something that will stay of the project and that will remain. The other thing is how patients perceive treatment, putting it as a co-primary, because when we thought about this, it was a main secondary, but elevating it to the co-primary, I think this is also a relevant step in these types of treatment where we are really evaluating tolerability of treatment. It's a movement that in oncology is growing, and how you generate evidence that is strong enough in a regulatory way. It's a debate that is good to have. So one of the things is actually to start talking about them, and I think projects like PragmaTIL make this debate. So it won't bring all the answers, but it will help generate the debate and the conversation to advance the field.
Great, thank you. And we also have another question for you, is that do you already have a plan and strategy how and who will roll out the treatment after the clinical trials? How are you planning the transition from research to implementation?
So that's a very good question, and a very relevant on how we scale it up. This is conversations that are currently ongoing, so the final strategy is not done. Our colleagues in the NKI have asked for, they have filed for their own TIL to get EMA approval. So they are evaluating this application now. This has been a lot of effort led by John Hannan in the NKI. So this is a first step, but the final strategy and how this will be done is not currently finalized.
And one question that I want, it's coming back also to patient involvement and their input, is how, if you can share a concrete example of a decision that changed because of the direct result of patient input, apart, Elena, from your example. Can you share a little bit about that?
So a part of changing the co-primary endpoint, then there were some specific toxicities that we are evaluating the toxicities that we considered relevant. No? So in this selection of the relevant toxicities, patient's voice was also important. So we are evaluating the term from evaluated by the physician and then the patient reported outcomes. And we had some change of this special relevant adverse events due to patient involvement. So this is something that also changed.
And you, Svitlana?
Yes, I think for us in general, this is fundamental question of designing the product or solution. So this is so integral that it's hard to even put it in terms of it's patient engagement. It's the essence of delivery a solution around the need, and that's the essentially definition of innovation. Because if we know what people need and how it works, there's no innovation. We just go to a large enterprise and work there. But if we want to change lives of someone who is underserved, who is from a specific region, who is, for example, hidden underserved populations, such as, for example, the immigrant populations who don't often speak language, or geographically excluded, or just because of lack of resource, that's something we don't know. So therefore, we don't know how to design the intervention, how to deliver it, and how operationalize it practically. So it's clinically sustainable, but also commercially potentially sustainable. So it's really at the core of that innovation, or at least it should be, or the successful projects actually getting it right. How not tick the boxes, but have people contributing and actively testing and iterating. And I think this iteration is also quite important to be comfortable with, because it's many assumptions that would be coming at the beginning, both clinical but also delivery technological, will be wrong, because we don't know yet. So it's this systematic process of working with people as they understanding them, how, when, why they're using, but also how to make it delivered in an efficient way. And of course, it's also the role of clinicians and research nurses, or anyone who's involved in the stage, equally important. I have to underline, it's not just one patient and person that sits across the table. It's really the whole kind of group of people who take part, who make decisions, who influence decision, who are impacted, like family members, I mean, patient engagement is important, but how about people who care for them, right? Their children, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely caretakers and family members are an integral part of the process. Even in situations maybe where patients are not even able to express themselves fully, or in adapting on how they move in the world. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Actually, there's a lot of people in the audience thanking you for sharing your experiences, because there are many things that also are the same challenges other businesses face in their work. And if there's not anyone else in the audience who wants to share any questions, I would like to ask you a final question. That is the advice you would give to other projects that want to advance from patient-centered rhetoric to actual real patient partnership. What can you share about that finally?
I can go first. So I just really probably will be repeating myself, but it's about systematic thinking, how we can deliver something better adjusted to this particular population or challenge that we're working on addressing. I would say from the ecosystem level, it's important to engage diverse patients, but it's also important to engage diverse innovators, diverse founders, diverse PIs who bring, intentionally or not, bring a lot of their own experience, needs, understanding. I think there's nothing better than a founder or a project leader who actually experienced the condition firsthand, or someone from their family, because they understand what it is, they have the drive, they have different perspective, even, if we're talking female versus male or someone from ethnic minority, they bring that unique perspective, and that perspective defines their decisions about the product design, which is very, very important. So I would say, yes, it's super important to maintain that diversity, creating tools, instruments for engaging the stakeholders, the broad range of stakeholders, using the participatory frameworks that enable that. And of course, for government and regulators, not create another set of rules, but create instruments to help innovators to create safer, fairer, better solutions, include everyone. And I think that's the answer to that.
Great advice. Thank you. And Elena, do you have any other advice for projects maybe more related to your specific project or your area? Do you have any advice for them?
So I think, not to repeat what Svitlana says, to do this as soon as possible. So not to have as something that is good to have, but really to believe in it and put it as soon as possible in the equation as possible. I think it's important also that there's a voice, on how this impacts results and how this can create some challenges that everybody needs to be flexible, like changing the protocol, amending the protocol at a certain point. This will require some extra budget. This will require some extra time. So if we want this to happen, we also need to have the frameworks that allow this to happen. So I think it's important that this is heard, that the challenges that and so the positives that this brings, but also the challenges that need to be addressed for this to be done in a smooth and run way. This is also important.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for joining us today and for such an engaging discussion. If there's not any more questions or people willing to participate, well, I of course would specifically like to thank both of our champions for generously sharing their experience and their insights, and also the audience for the thoughtful questions and the active participation. And also, before we go, I would like to inform you that the deadline for submitting the projects for the second edition has been postponed to the 12th of March, so you have a little bit more time. Don't come for me if you don't have any more time. It's January, I'm telling you. So I hope we will have many participants. We are trying to learn from everything we did in the first edition to make it better for the second edition. I think it's a super interesting ecosystem of states and areas and projects, and we can all learn a lot by sharing best practices and trying to make our projects better. So thank you very much for participating, and I hope that today's conversation contributes a little bit to strengthening the patient-centered and responsible and sustainable personalized medicine across Europe. If you don't have any more questions, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Thank you for the invitation and recognition, and everybody again for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you for participating and taking patients in mind.